it is extraordinary. No parent has ever been charged or convicted of a homicide offense in connection with their child's mass shooting. Mm-hmm. So this prosecution has already broken new ground, and convicting the parents would certainly break new ground. Now, what are they specifically being charged with? They're being charged with involuntary manslaughter. Involuntary manslaughter is a felony that's punishable by up to 15 years in prison. And in Michigan, although the standards in other states differ in various ways that we might get into, the minimal mental state, mens rea, intention that you have to have in order to be convicted of the offense is gross negligence. You have to be grossly negligent, and your gross negligence needs to cause the death of another person. Gross negligence means you've fallen way, way, way below the standard of care that a reasonable person would take, and you have been culpably ignorant of a substantial and unjustified risk. This is more than just falling below the standard that a reasonable person would take, which could get you liability for a civil suit. It's really, really, really falling below, and it needs to cause death.
Right. And you provide an example in your piece at the Washington Post for a circumstance where this has been applied to a shooting.
Yes.
And it was a father leaving a shotgun loaded and easily accessible to his young children, and then one of them shot the other one in an accidental shooting.
Yes.
And he was convicted under the same standard.
Right.
But you don't find the actions of the Crumbleys, in this case, the parents, to meet that same standard. Or is that right? Like, given what we know about them so far?
So I want to be careful here with suggesting that the prosecution is going outside the law to bring these charges. Mm-hmm. Common law is developed by, well, it's frankly developed by prosecutors and judges, but it's ultimately in the cases that are decided, developed by judges who decide what counts as gross negligence and what doesn't.
Sure.
Before this case, before People v. Head, there weren't really any cases that were particularly similar to this one. But then there was Head, and now the prosecution has a plausible argument that they can rely upon to bring these charges. However, there are certain important differences between these cases that the defense is almost sure to raise as this develops. We should keep in mind that the fact that whether this case goes to trial or not, that's not assured. Most cases don't. So this case may not result in an opinion that really examines Head, that's the name of this case, to determine whether this is within the scope of that. But the important differences here there are a couple of them that are very relevant. First of all, we're dealing with an accidental shooting in that case. We're dealing with an accidental shooting by a 10-year-old girl who's not competent to use firearms by any stretch of the imagination. That followed...
Not unsupervised, at least.
Unsupervised. Right. That followed very directly from accessing the short-barreled shotgun that was unlocked and that was in this playroom. So what are the differences between that case and this one? Well, the big difference is that this is, as the prosecution has presented it, a series of deliberate killings for which the shooter is being charged and is an adult for first-degree murder. First-degree murder. So we're not talking about just a negligent failure to keep the gun secure. We're talking about, the prosecution is alleging, a series of failures on the parts of the parents to intervene and to prevent their child from killing a number of people deliberately. And regardless of Head, that is going to be a difficult case to prove because of the issue of causation. Even if the parents fell way below the standard of care that a reasonable person would take under these circumstances, there's the question of whether their negligent failure actually caused, in the sense relevant to criminal law, the deaths of these children. One of the things that can break the chain of causation in criminal cases, and even in civil cases, quite frankly, is deliberate action by a third party that counts as an intervening event. So, whereas in Head, we have negligent failure to keep guns secured, leading to an accidental killing in the same room as the gun of another child by a child. Here we have a child deciding to get into this unsecured area, to take this gun to school, and then to deliberately kill several other people. To show that the parents' omissions, their failures to intervene, caused the deaths of those children is going to be a difficult thing for the prosecution to do.